Most people don't know how important sleep is and how critical of a foundation it is. Can you talk a little bit about sleep and why it's so important?
Yes, actually sleep, as we're talking about it, neonatal, is important in the first 12 months of life, and it's a foundational part of that. But all of us, we all have to really realize how important sleep is to us, and it is foundational for our neurodevelopment and how we can meet capacity and function during the day. In the infant, the real importance there, of course, is that they sleep a lot. There's so much growth that's happening, and they need to have that time so that they can have rejuvenation, all the information that was understood during the day, all the learning that took place starts consolidating in the brain. So that means actually I learned from those experiences. So I need sleep time to be able to encode that information and make sense of it. And so my brain is working while I'm sleeping. The rejuvenation, the neurotransmitters, the parts of the brain that are working, they need time to replenish, etc. All of this is so important because it's also restful, of course. And in the morning, then you feel like you've had some really good restful sleep, you feel better about your day. You can then engage in a learning process. You can, then handle what the world brings to you that day. So it's very critical. It's the foundation for how we live during the day. And then for the infant, the alert periods of time, then how we relate. And relationship is a key aspect to neurodevelopment. So all of those play together. Sleep is critical and something that we do need to make sure that we address with infants to make sure that they get the benefit of it. And as they grow up, as we know with young children, sleep can be a prime cause for much of what we see with both behavioral and developmental concerns.
So if we have an infant that's getting the right amount of good sleep, that's going to affect how they interact with their parents. It's going to affect how they feed. It affects so many things, and it all starts with sleep. Is that correct?
Yes, it's foundational. The other piece to that, because everything intertwines, is that also if a child has feeding problems, it could impact sleep. But they do work together. Sleep is the core element from which we know that having that deep sleep where we have good rest, we have rejuvenation, we have the restoration. From there, we are then prepared to handle all the learning and all the aspects of the day that then allow us to relate to each other. And of course, what we talk about in neurodevelopment is that all aspects of neurodevelopment happen in the context of relationship. To have good sleep and then to be very prepared for that relationship becomes very important, because that is the context in which an infant is learning in that first year of life.
If we look at it from myself in my world, if I don't get the right amount of sleep, it's going to affect my day, it's going to affect my relationships, my work, my attitude, what I eat. You can only imagine that an infant, that this is even more, it's more dramatic, it's multiplied because their growth and their trajectory is so different than ours.
Right, and they're just having so much more learning that's happening every second of the day. There's the growth curve in that first year of life is just astronomically higher than what we go through. We are learning too, but certainly not at the speed that they are. And so it really makes an important base from which you come from. So for the infant who doesn't get sleep, who has more irritability, who's sleepy during a feed, so the feed might not go as well. They don't get as satiated, or they may not even take it in a calm way, so they get a sour stomach, or those kinds of things. So the potential for irritability during the feed. And then if you're not, so we know that sleep is a huge occupation of an infant. It's a good portion of their time, particularly in the first 4 months of life. But feeding is also a huge occupation. And if they are irritable during that time because they haven't slept well, what you eliminate then, or what you start impacting, is the relational piece. Because during the feed, in particular the first 4 months, it is during the feed that you have eye-to-eye contact, that you have more alertness, that right after a feed is often when the baby might be more connected. But if they're so sleepy that because they're not getting good rest, it does start impacting all of those things. So we see without good sleep, there is the potential for impacting eating, which then impacts relationship, attachment, attunement. And of course it gets frustrating for a parent. It's not a one-way street. So parents who have infants who don't sleep well probably aren't sleeping well either. And so then the interaction just compounded from there. So even from the well-being of the parent, it's important that a baby have good sleep.